Welcome to the John Cady podcast. I'm John Cady, U.S. Navy retired, former minister. Tonight's topic is going to touch on a subject of spiritual abuse that is commonly practiced in a lot of churches and religious organizations around the country. It ties in directly to the prosperity gospel, which unfortunately has put its hooks in just about every major religious organization in the country. We are talking about the pressuring of people to put money in the plate, specifically pressuring people to put in their tithes and offerings. I'm also going to talk a little bit about how do churches know what you make and therefore figure out how much they expect, notice I said expect, you to put in the plate every payday. I want to give a shout out to my dad because my dad and I talked about this a little this week as we were talking about things I've been doing ever since my girlfriend passed away, trying to make things a little bit better for me, getting out and about, getting in the community more, socializing more. And part of that also includes finding different churches where to have fellowship and worship, something that under my previous work schedule I just simply wasn't able to do. He brought it up how many years ago, when I was a little boy and my parents were much younger, the church my parents went to at the time somehow knew how much money my dad made at his job. And therefore, they asked him, how much should you be putting in the offering plate, Mr. Cady? That ticked off my dad, among some other things he saw going on in the church at that time. And he's not the only one. I recently visited a church here in Bartlesville, and it was a church I visited a long time ago. But when I visited this time, the very first thing that I heard being talked about was they were just completely overboard. They were more off the rails on talking about tithes and offerings and putting money in the plate. It was like they were just completely sold out on this prosperity message. Before I go any further, do I believe that people should give? Yes. Giving is a Christian virtue, and churches do not operate for free. They need money just like businesses, and even one's own home needs money to keep things going. But when you start pressuring people into giving, it's not really giving. What does the Bible itself talk about? It talks about being a cheerful giver. But when you coerce somebody to put money in the plate, they're no longer giving cheerfully. Because they're like, okay, here comes the offering plate, and if I don't put something in it, the pastor's going to call me into his office, or he's going to put a list of people on the board called non-tithers, trying to shame everybody. And some pastors go so overboard on the subject that that's the first thing they think about when a member of the congregation is going through a crisis. There was a church I attended in Maryland where I approached the pastor one evening after service because I was going through a marital crisis. I won't go into the details of it, but when I addressed the situation to the pastor, instead of sitting down with me and saying, John, let's go over this. I'm going to be here with you. We're going to get through this together. I'm going to help you do whatever it takes in the eyes of God to try to save your family. No, he did not ask that at all. The first question that this pastor asked me was, when was the last time you tithed, John? I haven't seen any money in the plate in a while. Well, let's see. The marital crisis also led to a financial crisis. The bank account during that period of time would sometimes be overdrawn. What is 10% of zero, Reverend? 10% of zero is zero. And it was that type of mentality that made it difficult to get anything accomplished spiritually in the church when I needed help, because if they were more focused on money, and again, while money answereth all things, the love of it is also the root of evil. During a period of time where I was affiliated with an activist group called Church Folk Revolution, I'll talk a little bit more about them in a future podcast. One of the comments that they made was they would say, if your pastor is living in a big mansion and drives brand new cars and you're still living in Section 8 housing and you're on food stamps, something's wrong. Your tithes and offerings shouldn't be going in this direction. The pastor's robbing you blind. And when these pastors go into the rant about, you got to put God first, you got to put God first, you got to give your first fruits unto the Lord. This puts low-income families and families who are struggling financially into a serious bind, because now you've put them in a scriptural dilemma. And what's that scriptural dilemma? It's, should I pay my tithes or should I feed and take care of my family? Because the Bible also warns that a person who does not take care of his house is an infidel and has denied the faith. So you have put members of your church in a no-win situation when you force them to choose between putting money in that plate and feeding their children. That is just wrong, and that's one of the reasons why I cannot and will not preach about tithes and offerings. The way it's done in most congregations is just wrong, and I'm going to call it what it is. It is a form of spiritual extortion. I've ranted enough about this, but going back to what my dad said about how they knew, a lot of the information that is available to churches about how much money people make is actually easy to find. If you're in the military and being retired Navy and being stationed in Norfolk, Virginia, just about any church in Norfolk can access military pay charts. These military pay charts, which are available to the public, give a pretty good idea of how much a service member makes depending on the rank and how many years they've been in. As a result, they figure out, okay, well, you're an E7 with 18 years in. We're expecting you to pay this much amount in the plate. And then going through Department of Labor statistics or having friends who are affiliated with one's employer, the information is easily available and it can be used as leverage by the churches to hold people hostage when it comes to their souls versus their money. It makes it very easy for the pastors to shake people down for the cash when they know how much they make. This also, in my opinion, violates the confidentiality between the pastor and the parishioner. It's just plain wrong, and it's a breach of trust. I was always taught that how much I make is really nobody else's business, how much I put in the plate or how much I make. That is between me and God. If I have it to give, I have it. If I don't, then I don't. I just find it pretty sad when Christian men, or supposedly Christian men, will use that as an excuse not to have fellowship with you because you don't agree with them about that one particular topic, even if you agree with them on almost everything else. And again, this also ties into that pastor I corresponded with from Florida. He was very much in agreement with me on a lot of things. But when it came to tithes and offerings, and when I explained to him that I felt the way the church has taught it, it was a form of extortion, he immediately blocked me and he said he wanted no further contact with me. He lived up to his promise. He blocked me and ceased all further communications, but that's just very sad. And while most of this podcast has been on basically a rant about tithes and offerings, hopefully I gave a little insight on how churches figure out how much people make and how they use that as leverage. This is John Cady. I'm glad you listened in on this podcast. If you like what I present to you, hit the like button, hit subscribe, and I will most certainly catch you on the next one.